Breaking news! They tried to blow up the TurkStream gas pipeline to stop the supply of Russian gas to Hungary. In Serbia, explosives and detonators to set them off were found near the pipeline carrying Russian gas to Hungary. This was officially announced today by the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić. According to him, the explosive devices were discovered by the military near the Balkan Stream gas pipeline, which is a continuation of the TurkStream pipeline. Viktor Orban immediately decided to use this event to boost his failing ratings in the upcoming elections. And he convened an emergency meeting of Hungary's Defense Council, where he ordered the military to urgently strengthen the protection of infrastructure. Although it seems like he has already done something similar before, when he claimed that the military would guard critical facilities from the supposed Ukrainian threat. Now the puzzle pieces are coming together. Just yesterday, Viktor Orban and his Slovak friend Robert Fico once again stepped up their campaign to pressure the European Union to lift sanctions against Russian oil and gas. And at the beginning of March, let me remind you, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin publicly stated that supposedly Ukraine wants to hinder Orban and Fico and ultimately blow up the TurkStream pipeline to hell. And here's a coincidence for you. They allegedly wanted to blow up the TurkStream pipeline. The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has already stated that this is all a Russian operation under a false flag. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, please subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave a comment. And friends, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with a donation of any amount or a paid channel membership. How can you do that? All the links and all the details are in the description of this video. And it says, support the Alexei Pechi channel. Choose any format that's convenient for you, and I'll be grateful for any support you give. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is also in the description of this video. So, there's a real detective story unfolding around the elections in Hungary. Today, the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, suddenly announced that explosives and detonators for activating them were found near the pipeline with Russian gas leading to Hungary. According to him, the devices in 2 backpacks were discovered by the military and police near the village of Velebit, a few hundred meters from the Balkan Stream gas pipeline, which is a continuation of the TurkStream main pipeline. Let me remind you, the route runs along the bottom of the Black Sea from Russia to Turkey and then overland through Bulgaria and Serbia to Hungary. Vučić added that he informed the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, about this discovery. Orban said that he is convening an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. And on the Serbian section of the Balkan Stream, there is the only compressor station, Žabari, which was built in 2021. In March of this year, the country's army stepped up security around it. Last year, Hungary, I should note, received a record nearly 8 billion cubic meters of gas through TurkStream. And in 2026, they made deliveries. Deliveries reached an even higher level, 22 million cubic meters per day. Well, it's interesting where this gas goes next. We also need to figure that out. And all of this was boasted about at the end of January by the Hungarian foreign minister, Péter Szijjártó. The same one who is constantly talking to Lavrov on the phone. And this is where things get really interesting. Obviously, Viktor Orban will accuse whom of attempting sabotage? Of course, Ukraine, because this is just part of his election strategy. On April 12, parliamentary elections will be held in Hungary, where Viktor Orban's party Fidesz could lose for the first time in many years. Viktor Orban himself made an anti-Ukrainian strategy the theme of his election campaign. Well, supposedly, who is to blame for all of Hungary's problems? Ukraine and Brussels. And just yesterday, on April 4th, Viktor Orban publicly demanded that the leadership of the European Union in Brussels abandon sanctions against Moscow and fully resume the purchase of energy resources from Russia. According to Orban, on Saturday he had an urgent phone conversation with his Slovak colleague Robert Fico. It's not clear what was so urgent about the call, but he says it was urgent, an emergency call. And the main topic was the situation in Europe, which the Hungarian Prime Minister calls critical. Orban claims that a serious energy crisis is approaching the continent and it is gaining momentum every day. He scares Europeans with the prospect of an inevitable fuel shortage and the rapid rise in utility prices. But he adds that there is a solution in this situation. This is Vityusha Orban, who can make a deal with the bloody dictator Vladimir Putin. Orban is sure that the only way to prevent a threat to the European economy is to immediately resume purchases from Russia. At the same time, Viktor Orban put forward direct demands to Kyiv. Orban categorically stated that the leadership of the European Union is simply obliged to force the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to immediately resume the full operation of the Druzhba oil pipeline, which pumps Russian oil to Hungary through Ukrainian territory. But did Viktor Orban understand that no one in Brussels was going to lift sanctions on Russia or resume buying Russian gas? Of course he understood. He understood perfectly well. But here, an external force is needed. One that not only interferes with Viktor Orban's plans, but also disrupts the supply of oil and gas to Hungary. During an election campaign, you need someone who gets in the way. In general, this has long been proven in political science. Any political strategist will say that when there's nothing to surprise people with at home, a politician will invent something, usually an external threat. Well, Vladimir Putin in Russia is a vivid example of that. He built all his power on the idea that NATO and the West want to do something bad to Russia, which is why Russians need to tighten their belts, endure, because they're fighting a war against the damned West that wants to enslave Mother Russia. Classic. And that's exactly what Orban needs to. And here, according to the Kremlin's plan, Orban has set his sights on Ukraine. Let me remind you, the Druzhba oil pipeline was deliberately attacked by Russia, by the Russians at the beginning of this year, when Orban's election campaign began, and he immediately seized on the Druzhba oil pipeline issue to blame everything on Ukraine. But once again, it was Russia that attacked the oil pipeline, knowing that it was the only route for its oil to Hungary. Well, it's a perfect factor in the information war. Now, a week before the elections, they've also gone after gas. And here I should remind you that on February 24th, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, accused Ukraine of planning to sabotage the Turkish stream. After that, Gazprom reported 4 times about drone attacks on the pipeline infrastructure in the Krasnodar region. On March 4th, Vladimir Putin once again publicly repeated that supposedly Russian intelligence services have information about preparations to sabotage the Turkish stream. Further, excuse me please, I will quote Vladimir Putin. Just as the Nord Stream pipelines were once blown up, now in Kyiv, with the support of some Western intelligence services, an operation is being prepared to sabotage the Blue Stream and the Turkish stream. We have already informed our Turkish friends about this issue. Let's see what will happen in this area. But this is a very, very dangerous game. And now, the most important thing. The information campaign about the alleged threats to the Turkish stream unfolded against the backdrop of the cessation of Russian oil transit to Hungary and Slovakia through the Druzhba pipeline. The pumping stopped on January 27 due to damage to a section on the territory of Ukraine. The CEO of Naftogaz of Ukraine, Serhiy Koretsky, noted that a fire broke out in the storage tank which took 10 days to extinguish. As a result, equipment, power cables, transformers, and the leak detection system were damaged. Given the scale of the destruction, Ukraine was unable to promptly provide information about when supplies through the Druzhba oil pipeline would resume. In response, Budapest, without making a single statement about the Russian attack on the oil pipeline, began accusing Kyiv of refusing to pump oil for political reasons. And let me remind you that Viktor Orban even sent his delegation to Ukraine, who were supposed to come, look at the destruction and say, no, Zelensky is lying to everyone, no one attacked. The delegation came, left, and didn't make any statements. As a result, Hungary blocked the provision of a €90 billion loan to Ukraine from the European Union and, together with Slovakia, prevented the adoption of the 20th package of sanctions on the anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And now there's an attempted sabotage on the Turkish stream in Serbia. This is a perfect continuation of Viktor Orban's election campaign in the media, claiming that Ukraine and Brussels supposedly want to leave poor Hungarians without gas and oil. I'm more than sure that after April 12, after the elections in Hungary, this whole topic will die down. And there's one more very important point. Do you remember how Viktor Orban threatened to stop gas supplies to Ukraine from his territory? He said that's it. Since Ukraine isn't pumping oil to us, we won't pump gas. You might be surprised, but in March just recently, Hungary didn't pump a single bit less gas. They pump the same volumes, continue trading. Why? Because they make money from it. That's why, in public, Viktor Orban declares that not a single drop of gas will pass through our territory to Ukraine. According to the monitoring results in March, the same supply volumes remained, and in April they also continue. So statements are one thing, but reality is completely different. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, I would be grateful. You can do this by donating through the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.